Investigators took Michael Cohen's computer, phone, and personal records as part of the search of the raid of his office. We don't know if he's guilty, but we do know without a computer or phone, he's definitely bored.
Senator Tammy Duckworth gave birth to a baby girl, making her the first senator to do so while in office, though Mitch McConnell was the first one whose water broke.
Steve Wozniak, who co-founded Apple with Steve Jobs, says he's abandoning Facebook because of its exploitation of people's data. Meanwhile, the prototype of the next iPhone can predict when you're going to die.
Fox News accidentally broadcasted a graphic listing them as the least trusted major news network. Well, you know what they say, even a broken clock is right about the least trusted major news network.
And finally, Facebook notified users who had their data stolen by the political research firm Cambridge Analytica of the data breach. Users received one of those cute little notifications that say, "We care about your memories. Check out this post from a Russian bot 2 years ago that wrongly influenced your political views." The Trump Report starts now. Live from Los Angeles, California, AFTERBUZZ TV, and America's Voice. This is the Trump Report. You ever have one of those times where you feel like you've done something before, like exactly the same thing happened to you, and it happens again a minute later? I have no idea what I'm talking about. Welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Christian Bladt, and joined as always by
Chelsea Galicia. Hello.
And next to Chelsea.
Hi, Tamra Brown right here.
And
hey guys, Scott Moore.
And in a little while we'll have a very special visitor all the way from the land down under. Can you hear the thunder? We will get the outsider's perspective on our crazy political system from my friend Brad Warren.
Hot political takes from Crocodile Dundee.
Hot takes from down under, exactly. That's not a take, that's a take. Anyway, so we talk about this a lot on the show where, you know, when we sit down, it's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to talk about? There's never anything new. There's not even anything remotely interesting. At some point, we'll probably just do a show on maybe vacation plans that we all have for the summer or something. I mean, I guess we can cobble together enough of a show here. Hey, so the FBI apparently raided Trump lawyer's office and his home, and I don't know if his home is a hotel room, so maybe that's a third location. Chelsea, yep. You as you're a recovering lawyer, but you are a resident attorney.
It's my side hustle. I've recategorized it from being a retired recovering to it's my side hustle.
So you've just given into the fact that it has power over you. That is the first step to recovering as a lawyer.
You're an Uber driver who lawyers on the side.
Yeah. Who moonlights as a lawyer.
I wonder which one you make more at. I want to know. So what should we know about all this? You know, just from not from the emotional Scott Moore dancing in the street celebrating, which we'll get to, but just sort of informationally. Tell us what this means from that kind of standpoint.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why this is a big deal, because you're like, wait a minute, don't we have such thing as lawyer-client privilege? So that's an issue here. And then the other thing is going in to raid an office, don't we have rights? So I'll address each of those. First of all, about the rights. There was a warrant, and it wasn't Robert Mueller that had anything to do with this. It was actually a U.S. attorney who went to a judge to get a warrant. So this is not some, I don't know, like silly witch hunt or something. This is a completely different.
I don't know why you use that term, witch hunt. Which is such a weird phrase. Have you heard that somewhere?
So this is like a legit separate thing from the whole Russia investigation. And yes, you can get a warrant for a no-knock search warrant, which means that you don't even get the politeness of the, police open up. They just go right in. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, Trump doesn't like it. Think of all of the immigrants who are having that done to them. There are a lot of people that have that done to them. And way too many situations, because I think even one is too many. The FBI or police officers will shoot people's dogs. They will take assets, known as civil forfeiture. A lot of this has to do with drug cases, and now it seems ridiculous that they would do that over cannabis, which is fully legal here in California and other states. But this kind of thing happens all the time, and it's not like an attack on the country. So there's that. The other part about, why would anybody be allowed to go in and get Michael Cohen's information related to Donald Trump? Isn't there such thing as attorney-client privilege? If the law was that simple, nobody would have to go to law school. The thing is that everything has an exception. So that's why you go to law school, is to learn all the exceptions to all the rules and laws that people think that we have. So yes, there is such thing as attorney-client privilege, where an attorney doesn't have to disclose anything, even something illegal, about their own client. But if they are in together on some sort of criminal conspiracy, then that privilege is no longer, and the Department of Justice has the right and hopefully ethical and legal obligation to go in and thwart any criminal enterprise that may or may not have occurred, or in the past, or ongoing.
Is it similar to like a doctor-client privilege where, if you tell your psychiatrist, under that sort of setting, like, yeah, but I hate my wife so much I'm totally going to kill her, that they're then actually held responsible if you go and kill your wife. So what if, they know something specific and maybe they're not involved, but then they don't act on it?
There are professionals that have a duty to report. And that is one of those dilemmas from real psychiatrists, therapists, child counselors, all sorts of the line of when does their duty to report kick in, and when it's something very specific, a plan to hurt yourself or somebody else, yeah, they have a duty to report that to authorities.
Thank
Very
you.
good analogy. I'm very impressed.
So basically,
I'm
just as
impressed
I
too.
thought, this is not a big deal. This is just not a big deal.
Well, I mean, we keep getting told that it's a big deal, but we get told that everything's a big deal. Tamra, are you buying into this one? Are you drinking the Scott Moore Kool-Aid?
I just
That
wanna,
the impeachment clock countdown
I
is,
just wanna,
is it
put-
like 10 minutes?
I want
like
to put my
2
head
minutes.
down. I want to put my head down, and every single time CNN has a breaking news special report, somebody just tap me on the shoulder, and I'll be like, "Is he still in office?" And if the answer is yes, then just leave me
Maybe
alone.
we should
I
ask
don't
them
care.
to do a rule where, like, if they can only have as many breaking news stories as somebody could survive taking shots every time.
Yeah.
And in one day, if you were going to die from how many shots you take because of their frequency of breaking news, then they can no longer have that many. I mean, because otherwise it is just like constant trauma being
But then it kind of
punched in the
depends,
face.
because I know people that would be able to, really go to town with 30 false alerts.
Yeah.
And by
And
the
it's
way,
not just-
Tamra, I want to correct what you said. CNN would have a breaking fake news alert. I'm sorry,
Yes.
you actually said that incorrectly. I just want to make sure that we get on the record. Yeah, it's a breaking fake news alert.
Christian and his anti-CNN agenda rears its ugly head.
But if they'd be interested in airing the show, I'll be very close to it.
And if they want to pay for it too, it'd be.
Well, I mean, that's implied. Who would give somebody a show that they don't get paid for? Scott, I want to know.
All right.
For anyone who watches the show regularly, you know that Scott he's just really keeps sliding the abacus over closer and closer to the sum total of all these stories equals impeachment. Where's the clock at right now?
I'd still say it's 2 minutes
2
before
minutes.
midnight.
All right, so it's 11:58
Yes.
right now. All right, it's still a long ways off. But I always have to point out when we're having this same conversation that we always have about how close you feel like we are to impeachment. I don't see Pence being implicated in any of this. Are you all right with that? He's not. I don't think he's going to go down for this.
No, but as long as he's a lame duck, you get a Democratic Congress taking over, and he can't.
Do
really
you
much
think
in
Mother
2
will
years.
keep him in line if Pence is president? Do you think that he won't be allowed to vote? He won't be allowed to go to the Senate because there's so many women
Yeah,
there?
there's too many women there. He can't
Yeah.
go unattended.
Well,
She'll have
I
to
mean,
be there.
Yeah, less women than there used to be, but there's still, there's still a lot. What do you actually seriously take away from the story? I mean, compared to other breaking, fake or otherwise
Yes.
news alerts.
I still think it's a big deal in the sense that it's not even connected directly with the Russia investigation. So now you have a whole secondary issue going on right now, and of course, when you're going to raid the personal lawyer of the President of the United States, that's a pretty big deal, regardless of what the situation is.
So, if we could do prediction, where do you think this goes to next? There's the where you hope it goes to
Yeah.
next, but what do you think is likely to happen next? I don't even mean ultimate, the next major, the ultimate reveal, the big reveal at the end.
It's a tough one because we're going to get into it later about Mueller and what that means for his.
We're gonna get into that
implications.
next,
Does it
so-
mean the? I'm trying to think of the guy's name from New York, not the attorney, but the. I can't think of the word. It just
Mike
slipped my mind.
Bloomberg?
No,
He's actually not from New York.
basically the guy that replaced the one that Trump had fired. And it was that position in Southern New York that basically was the one that gave the permission for getting the warrant put through. This guy only has a few more days, technically, well, a few more weeks.
The U.S. attorney.
Yes, the U.S. attorney. That's it. It was like a slip, but totally. So he's the one that actually ordered that. And the fascinating thing is that after May 5th, if Trump does not want to fire him, then it's up to the judges in that district to be able to either keep him on or appoint somebody new, and it's not up to Trump. So there's the implication, is Trump going to fire him? How far up the chain is he going to go for firing people? Because clearly he's very upset about this situation, which anyone would be, thinking his personal information has been,
Or maybe, like, isn't he supposed to go to Peru next week? Maybe he'll go.
Oh, he's not.
No,
He has canceled the
He
trip.
has canceled
I saw
that now,
yeah.
so Mike
Oh,
Pence
I
is
didn't
going
hear
in his
about that.
steed,
Oh.
getting his presidential...
Along with Mother, I would
Of course,
assume.
he doesn't travel solo.
Especially not
internationally.
around all those Peruvian women. I
Yeah,
don't think
no,
so.
he doesn't travel internationally solo.
This sort of leads us to our next area. It's really the same topic, but there are a number of Republicans that are really urging President Trump to, don't fire this guy. And, you have, of course, plenty of Democrats, but who listens to them? Who listens to Chris Coons and Cory Booker? Not President Trump. He doesn't listen to Lindsey Graham either, but at least he's the same party. So you have all these people, and they're trying to, just really state the case. It's like, it's really bad if you do this. But the real question is, and I go back to Chelsea, can he fire him? Is he still at the point where he can?
Well, this is one of those situations where law school doesn't tell you everything, because
So you can't be president because you don't know the answer to
There
this.
is no actual, like, black and white letter law that
Also,
says
she's not
yes
yet
or no.
35.
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
3 more months to go.
And by that you mean 4 more years and 4 more months. Let's be honest.
So it's not very clear. I mean, apparently Sarah Sanders believes that the president can, as she announced today, but you can find plenty of good, smart legal scholars who say no.
Right. Technically, he
cannot.
can't directly. And that's what it goes back to, is that technically he can't directly, but he can go around the way by firing Rosenstein and by firing, people that are not going to fire Mueller directly. So he can't directly, but he can have Rosenstein do it, who's in the place of Jeff Sessions, who recused himself. So technically he could fire him, get rid of the attorney general, replace an attorney general. Theoretically, that would be a rubber stamp for him, tell that person to fire Mueller, and he could technically do that, but it would be, as we've talked about in previous episodes, it would be a bad situation all around for him, for Republicans, and for the country in general.
Tamra, what's best for comedy? What's the best thing that happens here? Is that they just keep, kind of private eyes watching him, seeing what he's up to, watching his every move, but doesn't actually get fired,
What's best for comedy? I don't know. More Stormy Daniels. Somehow we
That's
find that
true.
it's relevant to her in some way. I don't know what's best for comedy in any of this raid on Cohen, because it's ultimately, I don't think it's going to lead to anything that's going to become
interesting.
public knowledge in a reasonable amount of time.
I mean, I suspect this is campaign finance related.
Yes.
Right.
And
Right, that's easy.
if there's nothing that directly implicates the president, he's going to be fine. If they're smart enough to not have any kind of paper trail, or if Cohen's not going to say anything under oath that would implicate the president, there's not really anything that ties to it. So Cohen could go to jail, but if Cohen goes to jail, that doesn't mean that anything happens to President
Somebody
Trump.
on Facebook's posted, "No, I'm really serious about this. Put Michael Cohen on suicide watch." That would be one way to. That's going all the way for the boss. It would.
Now, and for those that aren't watching on YouTube, I'm about to make air quotes. Is it suicide watch or, suicide watch? Because maybe he knows too much, I mean, so there's a couple of different ways to look at that. How loud does the roar from other Republicans have to get about this for it to really seem, for it to be taken more seriously? I mean, they basically, there's legislation that could be passed that would make sure that Mueller can't be fired. There's nothing legally preventing it at the moment. Do you think what do you think would happen for them to actually do that? And we'll take out of consideration the fact that it's Republican president. What do you think it would happen that they would actually pass something like that?
I don't think that they will. I've heard even Republican supporters of the investigation do not think that there needs to be legislation passed about it. But I think that if Trump tried anything, I think you would even see the Republican Congress supporting the continuance of the investigation, whether or not it's headed up by Mueller.
I would say the only thing that I think that would really scare them is if the polls look like it was going to be a huge blue wave for them and they were going to be completely knocked out of power, starting with the lower levels and state governments, and they were going to lose their grip on the House and potentially the Senate. I think that's really going to be the bottom line for them, because if they feel like they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big, and they know that they're out and they're going to be out of power, and essentially Trump is going to be a lame duck, more or less, that they're going to act.
Like the wave will knock over the wall, and then
exactly.
It will be
it'll crash right over that wall.
Forever.
Well, I feel bad
stunted
if
for
the wave knocks over the wall. I feel bad for the National Guard troops that are stationed there. So I hope that they bring their surfboards and that they're all right. In the chat, there's a very detailed conversation going on. R. Scott Brown is stepping up to point out that he can't fire Mueller, and he gives. And see, this is like, is this true or is it made up? He's like 28 CFR 600.4-600.10. According to those regulations, a special counsel, quote, may be disciplined or removed by office only by the personal action of the Attorney General, which is essentially what you're saying.
Which is what I said, yes.
But it's the fact that he has the CFR and the numbers and the points, to which Lady Goth says, gee, Scott Brown, what do you do in your free time? In any case, I like that we're getting factual information there in the chat.
So,
not fake news. If you want real news, you go to our chat.
That's right.
There is what's in the letter of the law,
Sure.
and then there's a practicality of being able to work around it the way that Scott was saying as to why it's debatable.
Well, I'm exhausted, so I think it's probably a good time to take a break. And when we come back, just a little light conversation about Syria. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Trump Report. Christian Bladt, Chelsea Galicia, Tamra Brown, and of course, the one, the only Scott Moore, and special, not yet seen guest, Brad Morin from Australia on the couch. We'll talk to him a little later. Let's talk about a chemical attack in Syria. It's a great way to welcome you back from the break. And now we have a tweet from President Trump where he points out many dead, including women and children, and mindless chemicals capitalized, I'm not quite sure why. Chemical attack in Syria. Area of atrocity is in lockdown and encircled by Syrian army, making it completely inaccessible to outside world. President Putin, Russia, and Iran are responsible for backing animal Assad. Big price, ... Obviously, very serious thing that he's commenting on. That won't prevent me from pointing out that animal Assad, not his best nickname. It's actually pretty far. Honestly, like Lion Hillary's the best one, and everything since then's been like.
Wasn't it Lion Ted?
I was lying to
Crooked Hillary.
I'm sorry, you're right. No,
Don't get your nicknames
Get those nicknames.
crossed.
It's
Man,
easy to do that, though.
And I usually play Trump nickname bingo, and I'm gonna have to adjust the game board at home.
Lamb the sham, lamb the sham, lamb the sham, right?
Sham.
Right? Yeah, no. Anyway, so obviously, like I said, it's a very serious thing that happened, but not a surprise that this is what Assad is up to. The surprise is directly pointing fingers at Putin and Iran to a lesser extent. But when President Trump is accusatory or talks about sanctions to Russia, is he like trying to throw us off the trail? Like, I kind of don't want anybody in high school to know I made out with the ugly girl, so I'm going to just make fun of her too. Do they think that that's what it is? Where does anyone else think is what it is? Is really what I'm trying to say. Scott, what do you think about the fact that he's directly implicating Putin in backing Assad?
No, yeah, I absolutely do. I think it's a way, knowing that Mueller's on the trail right now, and it's getting closer and closer, that it's a great way to say, see, I'm not really involved with this whole Russia thing because I'm calling them out, and I'm letting these sanctions happen and getting the oligarchs sanctioned, and doing all this stuff to make sure that they don't do anything anymore. See, so I can't definitely be involved with this whole Russia thing after all. So yeah, I do think it's a little bit of that, of course.
Tamra, obviously nothing funny about this, but the funny part is, what do you think Putin thinks when he hears that? Hey, that thing that happened in Syria? Yeah, Trump dragged you into it.
I feel like it's completely calculated. Like, I feel like before Trump tweets Putin's name at all, Putin gets a little text saying like, "Hey man,
By the way,
I'm about to. Hey, I'm
you
about
up?
to
Question mark.
Exactly.
And Putin's like, new phone. Who dis?
FYI, hey Pootie, it's DT. What up? Or whatever.
The Donald.
Russian.
probably.
The Donald,
His nickname
maybe
is always
Russian
Vlad.
street lingo is the equivalent to all that. Anyway, I don't know. Who knows anything? But I always assume that Putin is in on it. He knows when
So you think he's
knows.
pulling all the strings, including his own string? He makes himself okay. What do you think, Chelsea, about obviously what happened in Syria, but also President Trump's response?
Okay, so am I the only one that was really caught by the word mindless chemical attack? Mindless doesn't fit. The word I think he was looking for, if he had one, would be heartless.
Or senseless, actually.
Senseless,
Either one of
yeah.
those we would accept. The judges, the East German judge, would give you points for that. But mindless means I accidentally chemically attacked.
Yeah.
those
Yeah, that's a
kinds
great
of-
point. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm
Or
so
like it
mindless
was-
I didn't catch
It
that.
was
didn't either.
intentional, but it was just like off by 200 yards or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, I actually meant to gas those people. As
It's
my face is red.
it's that kind of thing that makes me think, how do people believe that he is a smart person? And I know that people think, well, he's smart because look how much money he has. But can we please once and for all disconnect
Right,
money from intelligence?
Yes,
Please.
exactly.
I mean, I even try and do it when people are like, oh, you're a lawyer, that must mean you're smart. No. They're smart, and then they're a lawyer, and sometimes they overlap,
Right.
and many times they do not. So, but same thing with money and smart. Please, let's separate them.
But see, I'm not very smart, and I don't have much money, so that would lead me to believe that someone who did have a lot of money was smart enough to figure out how to get it. Even if they won in the lottery, they're just smart enough to pick the right numbers.
You're making me lose faith in
What, in everything?
Okay.
Smart enough to be born into the right family.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
not smart enough.
see?
To
With the $1 million.
I wish I was a little smarter in that way.
The other thing that occurs to me when he says that, I'm like, oh, welcome to nuance, Mr. Trump, because just last week he's like, we're getting out of Syria.
Right, exactly.
And then now he's like, big price to pay. Okay, so now you see that things aren't so simplistic. It's not one person is all right and the other is all wrong or all good or all bad. And, this trade deal is just bad. And this is, I mean, I hope that people, I think Americans want it to be that simple. And I think that's why so many people have followed Trump, because they're like, he simplifies this for us. Things are good or bad. The Iran deal is good or bad. First of all, do you think Trump has ever read the Iran deal? Does he even know
Of course
it?
not. He doesn't read, so he has no clue.
So it's we.
I mean, if
gotta
there's a
stop
book
being-
on tape, he might have like listened to it while he was gone.
if it was
Let's be
being
honest.
read by Fox and Friends, maybe.
and lots of graphics and pictures.
So can
So if Pete Ducey does the book on tape, then he's going to hear it. Then he'll actually listen to it. All right, well, look, that's the way to get it done.
So I want people to start understanding, look, yes, we don't want to spend $7 trillion on endless wars. I'm with you. And there may be an appropriate action that we, as part of the world community, should be a part of in this situation. Things are a bit complicated. They're not as simple as we hope that they are, or the way that he tries to explain that they are. And I hope that we're all getting a little bit more sophisticated in our knowledge of what's going on in the world and what our response should be. It's not always the United States is bad for intervening in something, and it's not always good when America goes around like an imperialist.
Who are you hoping is more informed of what's going on in the world? Do you mean American people?
Yeah.
Oh, honey, who have I lost faith in now? One more thing before we take a break.
It's asking a lot.
President Trump's talking about sending troops to the border. Now, I guess it's volunteers and National Guard. Great headline from the Washington Post. Troops sent by Trump to the border will fly drones, gather intel, and clear brush. So it sounds to me like they're going to play video games, spy on each other, and clean up trash. Kind of sounds like, sort of like the chain gang on the side of the road when you're, a prisoner and you get to go out and work out in public. It's like, yeah, clear some brush. Is that keeping? So is he building a wall to keep brush out of the United States? Because if so, I think this is the way to do it.
Southwest has an epidemic
Right.
of tumbleweeds,
Tumbleweeds,
as movies have let us know for decades.
Yes, it is indeed the tumbleweed connection. But when you hear this, Chelsea, what do you think? Is this really? No, I was going to ask
You
a
know
dumb.
what-
I was
who
going
the
to ask a dumb question. Let me ask a better one. Is this the worst usage we could have for our National Guard? I was going to ask, is this a good usage for the National Guard? I already knew. I was being a
there a
lawyer. I knew
worse?
what the answer was to that question. So I asked a different question. Is this the worst usage?
How about this? We can send as many National Guard troops to the border as we send to Puerto Rico. Is that a fair deal?
Wait, but that would be like what, 6 or none or
So, if you really care about the border, fine. We're going to show equal concern to the people of Puerto Rico, who still, many are without basic
Yes.
utilities.
And I just
still.
read the Hurricane Maria report came out from the National Hurricane Center yesterday. They do for every storm, and just going back and reading how terrible it is and how many people still don't have the basic infrastructure to get through is mind-boggling.
So I'm trying in an effort to compromise. This is what I'm suggesting, and I would like to hear from Storage Yard resident who's very passionate about this wall, if he thinks that's a fair deal.
Well, Storage Yard resident can certainly let us know.
As anybody can, but
Well,
I
yeah.
particularly
He checks in
interested
at the beginning and then he just studies what we say.
Oh,
So we may or may not hear from him, but that'll be all right. Tamra,
Sir.
are you signing up to clear a brush at the border? Would you volunteer?
I already have.
Okay.
I've been down there for the
Can't you
past
tell
few
her
weeks.
tan?
Yeah.
She took her private plane down
That
there.
hurts.
Oh, right.
Her yacht. She took her yacht down.
From
Time
what
to
I
board.
understand,
Yes.
you know, a big part of this whole the ridiculousness of Trump's wall, in part, is because so much of the actual border is you can't build on it. It's in like terrain that like it's not like there's a large majority of surface area where these people are going to be just like making a chain, like a Red Rover chain across the border.
But imagine
So-
if they did, just for a
It's
second.
just their caravans.
Yeah, but anyway, continue.
They
Sorry.
line up.
Yeah. So wait, what was the question? Would I go down there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there. I think it's hey, you know, maybe it's useful to those border towns to have some people buying, you know, oranges on the side of the road. Maybe it'll be good for the local economy.
Well,
They can raise the price of bottled water at the.
I've booked my family vacation for the summer down to the border wall, so we're all going to help out. So don't worry. What were you
Beautiful.
going to say, Chelsea?
I was going to say, hey, why don't they, National Guard, do intel on the Americans who are buying the drugs at the border?
That sounds like it would be a violation of our rights if they were investigating. Like, don't I have a right to do something illegal like buy drugs?
I mean, if that's what, I mean, that's sure. Okay, fine. I would say fine. I'm okay with decriminalizing drugs if you want them, fine. But if the
I mean, I
National
don't,
Guard,
but if I wanted them.
if the National Guard can do something at all to relieve the violence going on in border towns, I mean, then I would say perhaps that's a good.
But that's also a
use.
misconception, though, when you think about El Paso being one of the safest towns in the country. And the problem is you really just don't have the type of violence that they're claiming they can do. And they also are hamstrung because they can't use weapons.
They cannot.
They can't arrest people.
But they got binoculars,
Right, they
hopefully.
can spy
you know,
on
there's like
people.
cities like Juarez. You
Right.
know, these towns where there is an unbelievable amount of murder going on.
Well, that's on the other side, though.
Because of our demand. I know
course.
this is the part that angers me so much, is that they all get killed trying to bring us our, you know, vices.
Well, they're providing a service. They're giving us something that we need. But wait, so are you
need
saying... Yeah, we need our illegal drugs. Other people need them. Okay, Charlie Sheen needs them. So are you saying that I should probably see if my reservation for Club Med Juarez is refundable? Is that what you're trying to tell me? All right, well, I'll try and do that during the break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Facebook, and we'll also get the Australian perspective from an American. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Trump Report. Christian Bladt, Chelsea Galicia, Tamra Brown, Scott Moore, and on the couch, revealing himself for the very first time, the mysterious visitor from the other side of the world, Brad Moore. Brad, say hi to the people.
Hi, people. How's everyone going?
All right, I didn't say ask everybody how they're doing. I just said say hi. But anyway, Brad, you are an American, as your accent would indicate.
That is correct.
But you live in Australia for 15 years now, give or take?
Correct.
So I wanted to start off this segment by getting sort of it can be a little bit your perspective, but what do the Australians, and I'm talking about the day-to-day people you talk to, but also the Australian media and press, what do they think of what's going on over here in the United States?
To put it slightly into context, and I will keep it brief, I moved to Australia 15 years ago, and I moved there under W. And it was an extremely hostile environment to be American because a lot of people thought that the war in Iraq was unjust. Australians in particular were really upset about it. And so I actually went through a lot of American hazing, so to speak. A lot of people called me names. It was actually really unpleasant. But then under Obama, literally people were crying and hugging me, and it was great. And everyone thought Obama walked on water. Now, whether or not he actually did is debatable.
That's definitely debatable.
But-
Because I'm not saying he didn't. I would not go on record saying that Obama didn't walk on water.
Well, he might have, you know.
We don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was this disbelief when Trump was elected. And ever since then, you know, I was expecting the hate to come back. Instead, people just put their arm around me, and it's like, oh, honey. Come on, please. We'll take care of you. Yeah, would you like a blanket? Would you like a nap? Maybe in 4 years, this will all be over. Maybe.
Or if you ask Scott, it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes.
Couple months.
Yeah, it's, after the midterms,
Yes.
realistically. Early, by this time next year.
Hopefully,
I think
it's
is what we're-
2019.
But so the other thing is we have a two-tier economy. Australia is very heavily based on the world economy, basically around the U.S. And China. And so when the great financial crisis, global, happened years ago, our economy didn't really crash because we relied so much on China, and they were cooking the books at that point and saying, oh, no, our economy's fine. It's totally fine. Well, at the moment, this whole discussion of tariffs and a trade war has Australians absolutely sweating bullets because the two
They don't even
pillars,
have guns and they're sweating bullets.
That's
Whoa.
right. I know.
No,
It's an
they might be
accomplishment.
able to have bullets. They just can't shoot them. They just, you
Well, that's
can
right.
They're
mass
sweating
them.
boomerangs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we throw the
Sweating
bullets.
didgeridoos.
We throw the bullets at one another.
Oh,
That's
they
how
come
that
right
works.
back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nicely done. But yeah, so the world is really, I mean, outside of the United States, the perspective is not good. And at the moment, a lot of people are really, for the first time, and I grew up traveling the world. I grew up in Japan and getting dragged across Asia. I'm seeing the first time that people are really looking at the U.S. as a hindrance, as a real problem, and we are not being seen as leaders anymore.
Yep.
Ironic, isn't it?
So,
What do they think we should do? Do they think we should?
I think he should be impeached.
based on what, though? Just that they don't like him?
Look. What's really interesting is the media in Australia is often owned by Murdoch, and so it's heavily right-wing focused. Even because of that, Australians in general are very nervous by Trump. They think that he was not. There's something hinky about the way he goes about doing things. A lot of what he's done is dishonest, and he should be impeached because of that stuff. A lot of people say, well, if you guys impeached Clinton for what he did, why the hell is Trump still in office? Now, I understand that Clinton lied under oath, and that was a problem, and all of that. And
Well,
what
President
he did,
Trump has lied on Twitter, which seems to be the same thing as lying under oath. Would you not agree?
well, according to him, probably.
Do they think that there's Russian collusion?
Absolutely. There's no doubt, according to a lot of people I talk to.
Okay.
Now, albeit I live in Melbourne, which is, the coffee-drinking, black-wearing, hipster, lefty central of the universe. I mean, we have a very small political minor party called the Greens, and that controls, we're greenies, and that controls Melbourne.
It sounds to me like Melbourne is is it the San Francisco of Australia?
Yeah, very much like a Boston.
Portland.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
right, exactly.
Well, I have a question. So we keep hearing about how globally, not just in the United States is there this conservative sort of come up, and it's happening across the globe. Is there an Australian conservative movement that's like gaining political steam?
No. Short answer, no. There was a very brief one, and Julia Gillard was sort of removed from office, and Tony Abbott went in, and he was our version of the right-wing clown. He was actually removed by his own party for being so boring and so... for a lot. He's just not popular.
Let me just interrupt for a
Boring?
second. At this point, I think we would welcome
Yeah.
boring.
Boring
Well,
with
Boring
open
would be
arms.
amazing.
Yeah.
I would love boring. I would love like a week where nobody says the president's name out loud. You know, just because it's like, oh, he's doing president stuff, whatever.
Where you can't even make jokes about
Right.
him because
Yeah.
it's
So
just
boring.
too. There's just
Yeah.
nothing. There's
Well,
just nothing there.
Well, that's what President Ralph Nader would have given us, but we weren't so lucky. Anyway, you're sorry.
I'm actually a teacher, and the guy that they replaced Abbott with about a year ago, maybe even longer, I actually can't even remember because he's the guy they replaced him with is so boring. My kids don't know who's leading the country. I have to repeatedly remind them because he is so boring and he's done absolutely nothing, and he's technically right, He's not a lefty by any stretch, but he's not doing anything. He's sort of lame duck, and people are talking about him being kicked out in the next election. Now, we have an ultra right-wing, ultra nationalist, says racist, awful things all the time, like Trump. She's Pauline Hanson is her name. She's got red hair, very famous in Australian politics, and she is still around, but people look at her like she's a clown, and that she gets the respect that she deserves.
Well,
which is not.
she does have red hair.
Oh, yeah.
So that would probably be a reason to look at her like a clown.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what you're trying to say is that my impression before this conversation started is that Australia was controlled by Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, and the remaining members of AC/DC. So you're saying that is actually not the ruling class in Australia?
No, it's very much Murdoch. Murdoch and the Packers. Just
The Green
lots
Bay
of-
Packers?
Nah, you wish.
Did somebody else see? I saw very briefly on Facebook. Somebody said there was a raid on Murdoch in the UK.
Yes, there was. I did not see it. I just saw the headline.
I did only
Yeah,
see the
I don't
headlines.
know anything
so,
more detailed about it.
Fun
Well, we should
stuff.
try and find out. We'll Scott, I'm going to put you over there on the Murdoch desk
Yes.
for a second. See what you can find out about that.
But Brad's
do
got.
you
Yeah.
guys want to ask about the other fun thing? Universal healthcare is pretty cool.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
So wait, let's spend 1 minute on it because I
good long minute,
Well, here's the
please.
thing about it, because universal health care, there's all the things that are great about it, but what were you just telling me about
Yeah.
at lunch?
So-
Well, I'll let him start with a negative, and then I'll let you talk about,
And then I have a
Okay.
quick negative and
Okay.
a quick positive. So a good friend of mine was injured at a concert a couple of years ago. And because he was a student, he did
Sorry,
not have.
you're skipping the fact that it was a polka metal concert.
It was a polka meta
Yeah,
concert. He got his knee kicked sideways.
Make sure to keep
Yeah, okay.
the important. You don't bury the lead there.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't sure how much detail I should get into. So he actually had to wait 9 months to have the operation fix his knee, and then they had to re-break it. So he actually healed the wrong way, and they had to fix
so
it.
9 months to have a broken leg healed.
But that was because he was getting his doctorate. He was a poor student. His wife wasn't working, and he could not afford private health insurance in addition to universal. Now, you actually get penalized on your taxes now because that law has come in the last couple of years.
Which law?
That you actually, if you do not have private insurance to supplement universal, you actually get penalized on your taxes heavily.
Interesting.
And it's actually usually cheaper to get health insurance than to get penalized on your taxes. Now, on the other hand, I flicked something. I'm blind in one eye, and I only have one good eye. And I flicked something into my good eye in the middle of the night. It was a Sunday night a couple years ago. Well, a long time ago, 6 years ago. And I had an emergency procedure, multiple procedures over the course of the night. It was, as I said, it was like 2 a.m. on Sunday when I finally got out. And for the entire process, I had to pay $11 for painkillers that I used once. And that was the entirety of what I paid. And I didn't use my private at all.
And that's not your private health.
That was entirely universal.
So why was the knee story? Why was that not?
It was a
covered?
specialist, and the line in public, non-private.
Which is what you'll hear.
Which you hear is
yeah.
Canadians will often say
Yeah.
that if you really need a procedure done, you got to get yourself to the United States and pay for it out of pocket, just depending on what it is. Now, there are, of course, many things that are good about a nationalized healthcare. And again, Chelsea, I will say, 1 minute, only because we have 7 and we have to still talk about Facebook, and I have comments from Sergeant
I just want
President.
to ask, what do you think is the solution to the Australian medical problem?
I don't think we really have a medical problem.
So the guy who waited 9
the guy
months.
who's waiting-
Oh yeah,
So,
but
like-
the solution is that private health insurance is now more common. They sort of revolutionized the industry a little bit, and they required people to get it. So look, if you don't have it, it
How
stinks.
expensive
You at least
is
have
it
something.
per
Yeah,
person?
Great question. Like,
So it's
the supplemental private
exactly.
insurance.
it's a couple hundred. It's
Like-
I think I paid before I got married to someone who works in the industry. I think I paid $70 a month,
Okay.
Done.
Okay.
I can do that.
and that gives me really good coverage.
That's better than
dental, vision, everything.
I pay $350 a month, no dental, no vision.
And it's probably not
Just-
great coverage. Yeah.
It's the bottom rung.
Right.
yeah.
But I never need to go to the doctor.
Of course not, because
Where
you're
if
so
you
young and
need
vibrant.
it, though.
Somebody find me wood. It's
Yes.
because of all my kale. We know this.
Yes.
It's
the
all the kale.
smoothies. The
I do want to talk about Facebook, but our pal Storage Yard Resident did respond to something from the earlier segment. I think he has a valid point in terms of sending the National Guard to the border. He says it is better to send the National Guard to the border than when they were sent to Iraq. I find it hard to disagree with that sentiment. Chelsea, let me know if you disagree.
Did the National Guard go to Iraq?
Well, he's saying, he's saying instead of sending soldiers to Iraq, I think that's what he's saying is, and
But that's both are terrible.
the military,
It's like-
military defends the borders of other countries, so why not this country's borders? So those are his points. Anyway, we wanted to give him the
So are they
voice.
going to go up to Canada too? Are
I
they
want
going
to
to
know
be on
about
the border
Puerto
there?
Rico. How much do we give a shiznat about our own people, our own American citizens?
So, do you think the people making decisions consider Puerto Ricans American citizens? I feel like they don't even realize the relationship. I think that they think it's just like
That's right, because they don't vote in federal
Yeah.
elections to be able towards the Electoral College, so they have no say. So that's what's going to change when they move to Florida and it becomes a Democratic state again. Then they'll be thinking differently.
All
Okay,
right.
let this Zuckerberg stuff. This has been most of my day as I've been driving around listening to
Well,
him.
tell us what you've thought as it sort of unfolded.
I haven't listened to
he's-
much
Well,
of it
one of the
myself.
things
First
that-
of all, he showed up in a suit.
I was going to
'cause
say,
that was the
he looks
key
very
point.
handsome in his big boy suit.
Yeah.
A couple of things that struck me. First of all, there was a question of does Facebook have a monopoly? And he was like, no. Like, okay. I'm glad that came up, and I hope that was not just a passing thing, that we start to have a real conversation about monopolies, not the game, but the actual...
Boardwalk Park Place.
Right. Okay, next. This I think is a really, really great opportunity for Americans to get to know their senators. You get to know a lot about your representative when they ask the questions that they do, and you get a good sense of how with it they are,
like
how
that.
smart they
That's a
are.
good point.
Now, I believe it was Orrin Hatch who asked, and I kid you not, was like, so you're telling me that Facebook does not charge its users, correct? Yes. So then how does Facebook make money? And Mark Zuckerberg, Senator, ads. And I next thought that Orrin Hatch was going to ask, and where do babies come from? Because this makes me, you have to pass it's not an IQ or even an EQ, it's like a cultural Q test about how America works. If you don't know about Facebook running on ads, you cannot be a representative.
But also,
in
don't
the Senate.
forget he's 85 and he's retiring,
Yeah.
so that explains a little bit right there.
He's
not
the one
running
that
again.
writes comments on his grandson's page and signs his name in the comments section, like all old people do, thinking that you don't know who it is unless I write my name.
Your full name, first and last name.
Well, Orrin
No
Hatch,
initial.
Orrin Hatch is so old that he actually has a YouTube. That is, and I actually meant to say MySpace.
MySpace,
yeah.
All right,
It's Friendster.
I'll tell the joke differently. He has Friendster, yeah. But that's all right. It wasn't that good of a joke. But, I think the question that he's asking, indirectly, I'm giving him more credit than I probably should, is... Do you make money from selling your members' information?
Facebook says no.
I know, but that's the way to ask that question. I
Yes.
think. I do think that's what
Well,
he
the
was trying to
question's
say.
been asked 42,000 times, and he keeps saying
And
no.
the answer is always no.
Right. And then there are questions. Here's what I like. I heard a Louisiana Republican, Kennedy, who said, I don't really want to regulate Facebook, but if you don't clean up your act, I might have to. And I was like, well, now there is a Republican I may be able to respect. I got to listen to what he says about other things. But I think that was really the heart of this whole thing is, can Facebook get it together enough to do this on their own, or will the government have to step in? Now, if history is any lesson to us, no. I don't remember the last time any large company was allowed to regulate itself and didn't screw us all up later in a big way. Banks, anyone?
Yeah.
Most important question from all of this, Tamra. How hard do you think the Winklevoss twins are laughing today?
They don't even know what's going on. They haven't heard about it. They're off on their private island.
Their buyout
They-
was so
billions,
huge.
yeah.
They haven't paid attention to the news.
They're just
and
spending the
yeah.
interest from the buyout
But
still.
in the portion of the hearing that I heard, there was a lot of Zuckerberg saying, "Let me get my team, get back to you on that. My team will get that data to you." So like there was a lot of, you know, as these go, like we didn't get a lot of questions answered. But one part that I thought was more important than it got was he was asked, when a user deletes their profile, do you keep their data? And at first he said no right away. And then the question was sort of reworked. There was a couple more questions answered, and then he was asked again. So on Instagram and Facebook, when a user deletes their profile, how long do you keep that data? And he said, well, I off the top of my head, I don't know, but we'll have to have my team get back to you on that. So it's sort of like, you know, flip-flopped on what he was saying. So it's little things like that where I think a lot of really valuable information is coming out of this that we're not really, you kind of have to listen to the whole thing to
Yeah. Oh, and
Well,
then
his-
Facebook is
out.
cooperating with the Mueller investigation. Did you hear that?
I
part?
did hear that. Well, you know, here's the key. The key takeaway then is that the Facebook team is going to be very
Well,
busy.
I was just going to say the key takeaway is that having a team that you can throw under the bus is always a good thing.
Exactly.
So you don't have to
But
know anything.
The team that I'll never throw under the bus is all of us here at the Trump Report, because we are out of time. Thanks to everybody in the chat, everybody who watched. Special thanks to the man from Down Under. Yes, you can feel the thunder. Brad Morin, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.
Because I felt like you weren't going to say anything. And I'm Christian Bladt. Oh, don't forget to follow the show at Trump Report ABTV. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Chelsea Galicia, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
Tamra Brown, where do people find you?
Find me on YouTube at Hey Tamra.
And Scott Moore.
You can find me on Twitter at SMan80.
And we will see you next Tuesday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Our new time that we're settling into, at least for a while. It's
getting cozy.
It's a little cozy. We will see you all then. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz
you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.